There are countless professions in the world, but only a few can truly be chosen. Even for the hard-working Chris, the life he envies can only remain in dreams. Not all people can reach the finish line after working hard. After all, everything is determined by one's background. Every time Chris passes by the equipment shop, he likes to come in and take a look. Looking at the armor, he hopes that he can wear them one day too. He whipped out his notebook and began taking notes on their properties. He carefully assessed the stats offered by the equipment. Meanwhile, a man named Lucas entered the shop with his butler. The receptionist immediately entertained them and mentioned their new products. As they were talking, Chris passed by to check the other models. With him near, Lucas noticed his presence and glanced at him. He asked if he's a reporter, to which the receptionist said he's a regular customer. Now that his attention was piqued, Lucas approached Chris. He activated his insight skill and saw that he was just level 3. He then asked what Chris was writing. After seeing that he's writing the pros and cons of different equipment, he began berating him. Chris was baffled. Why would this man suddenly speak ill of him out of nowhere? Thinking it's better to avoid him, he excused himself. But Chris was alarmed that the man was touching his shoulder. Out of instinct, he immediately swatted Lucas's hands off him. The man misunderstood this and was utterly pissed. He didn't know that Chris was having an allergic reaction when coming into contact with magic. Lucas manifested his arm equipment and clenched his fist, landing a destructive punch to Chris' stomach. Chris knelt to the floor in pain, while Lucas continued looking down on him. The receptionist quickly asked if he was okay, to which he said he was fine while covering his bleeding nose. Lucas then threatened to kill him if he ever saw him again. Chris quickly left, while the receptionist worriedly looked at him. As he got out of the building, it was revealed that he is an adventurer with no profession. One day, strange portals suddenly appeared all over the world. Over time, the number of monsters coming out of it surged. Only adventurers with special powers are capable of killing them. Ordinary people acquire the adventurer profession upon killing their first monster. The process is akin to drawing a powerful character or reward in a game, but when Chris drew his character, he got no profession. The adventurer's profession had been a known industry ever since, and ordinary folks like him could only be devoured in this hunt for resources. Somewhere in an abandoned building district, several mid-leveled adventurers can be seen waiting for their raid. Among them was Chris, wondering why there are lots of level 20 adventurers. Suddenly, he saw 2 acquaintances calling him to come over. It was his Uncle Zen, Charles, and Yuri, preparing to raid the dungeon. Chris speculated that this dungeon has some special output and checked his notebook. It was then that Kia, a level 6 healer, greeted their group. She then asked why Chris was taking notes, to which he said it might be useful, but she asked what's the use of this when they won't have a chance to plunder the dungeon. Still, Chris believes that his notes give him a better chance for survival. Chris and Kia then looked as the dungeon gate opened. Coming out of it was none other than Lucas, the adventurer from earlier. He disabled his ability as he told everyone to get started. Chris recognized him and wondered what he was doing there. He then turned to his butler and told her to pick their equipment from the warehouse. As he glanced to the side, he noticed a familiar figure. Meanwhile, Chris immediately turned away to avoid him, but it was too late. Lucas had already grabbed his shoulder. He then threatened him for not taking his words seriously last time. This time, Chris bravely retaliated and flicked his hands off his shoulders. Veins almost popped out of Lucas's head out of annoyance. He grabbed Chris' head, then landed a vicious knee strike to his stomach. He then conjured massive flames from his hand, threatening to kill him for real. But seeing him having allergic reactions from his touch, he finally understood what was going on. He was pissed and pointed his flames upward. The fiery ball of destruction ballooned as the bystanders watched. Following it was a powerful explosion, causing everyone to panic. The safety officer then called him out, to which he said it was just a joke. He then berated him for being a person allergic to magic. Gritting his teeth, Chris could only ignore his remarks. Kia immediately ran to check up on Chris. Meanwhile, Lucas's lackeys grinned after seeing their president's weird habit. Lucas then turned to them, leaving the special favor in their hands. Now that everything's settled, everyone was urged to line up and enter the dungeon. Kia asked how Chris was feeling, to which he said he was fine. The portal leads to another world and continuously emits magic power. This is an E-level dungeon, and Chris is just there to collect minerals. The portal will only be closed after they finish their work, but the dungeon drops and boss loot is not theirs. As Chris entered the portal, he had to grit his teeth in pain. Finally, they have arrived inside the Tower of Forgetfulness. Chris successfully crossed the dungeon gate without any issues, but being exposed to immense magic triggered his allergic reactions. He clutched his chest as he began bleeding, kneeling to the ground. Kia and other adventurers immediately checked up on him. Watching him, the others remarked how rare and pitiful his disease was. Chris could only endure both the pain and their words silently. Shortly after they entered, Everyone was urged to get started quickly. Kia looked around, wondering where Chris had suddenly gone off to. He then saw his energetic figure mining the minerals. The other adventurers wondered if he's really okay with working hard after vomiting blood. Turns out his condition is widely known as the abandoned adventurer. It is a disease as rare as hidden jobs during an adventurer's awakening. Their bodies reject the magic power of adventurers, causing allergic reactions. Many who've had this disease have died suddenly during skill combat. This is the reason they can never obtain their designated profession. Chris continued to mine the minerals, hitting them with pickaxe relentlessly. Because he can't fight, he could only rely on the tiny experience from exploration to level up. His disease can be treated abroad, but it requires a high treatment fee. He then pocketed his right hand, pulling out a recruitment ad notice for strategy advisors. He clenched the recruitment notice on his hands as he breathed in heavily. He squinted his eyes, determined to become an adventurer again. After quite some time, they're finally down to their last load. Chris picked up the minerals as they prepared to leave. He then glanced from ahead, suddenly feeling something weird. He saw the boss room's tower from afar and sensed mana coming from it. But then he was puzzled to see two boss room towers. Suddenly, someone unleashed an attack behind Chris. As he dropped to the ground, Lucas's lackeys stood to take care of him. Chris gritted his teeth as he thought of Lucas, wondering why he's targeting him. As he clutched his injury, the lackeys sarcastically said they're going to help him with his magic disease. He wondered if even living is a sin for them to hate a useless adventurer like him. As he stood up, Kia and the others looked worriedly at him. The man promised to use the highest level skills to kill him in one go. Chris gritted his teeth, smiling bitterly. He finally realized that this was what Lucas meant earlier by helping him. He looked at their gazes with disdain, wondering what they knew about him. He was utterly frustrated to see these fools playing as if they were gods. Meanwhile, Lucas's voice was heard talking inside a car. He declared that trash just needs to be disposed of and no one will care. He's also confident that his plans of cleaning them up won't fail. Thinking about how no one will escape the dungeon alive makes him happy. After all, the world always revolves around the strong ones. Back in the dungeon, his lackeys finally unleashed a powerful blow to kill them all. Chris was lucky to have evaded the devastating attack. He gritted his teeth, thinking it is a basic fireball spell. He figured out that these people just wanted to torture him in the end. He continued running away, but another attack intercepted his way. A powerful explosion ensued, sending rock and debris falling around. The man gritted his teeth, thrilled that his attack finally hit Chris. From the explosion came out Chris, covered in blue sparks. He can't accept this kind of fate and prepares to retaliate with a magic skill. The man looked at him with sharp eyes. He was then alarmed upon seeing Chris prepare a magic attack. But the mere activation of magic causes his heart to stiffen, making Chris suffer from unimaginable pain. He fell down to the ground, unable to continue his attack. He gritted his teeth, coughing as they stepped on his head. They then stabbed him mercilessly, continuing to berate them. He coughed severely, but he endured. He was in so much pain and feels like he is going to die. He wondered why he had to die without power. Those questions riddled his mind as his consciousness slowly drifted away. He wondered why they should decide about his life. Suddenly, a notification about dungeon abnormalities appeared. The dungeon boss monster was replaced with hell level. The tower began shaking as it emitted immense pressure all over the place. The ground rattled, as if fearing for the coming of the powerful. The man was only able to glance at the incoming strike, but he never had the chance to be able to dodge the mysterious man. While his consciousness fades away, Chris wonders what he was seeing. For him, two gods of death have descended to take him. In reality, they are the Soul Reaper, black and white impermanence. Chris found himself standing in an unfamiliar void. He wondered where he was and what was going on. The system detected the entrance of the player into this strange space. Chris heard this voice and wondered where it was coming from. He then found a little artifact standing before him. He glanced at it, wondering what that thing was. He speculated that the voice was coming from inside of it, so he stuck his hands in to check the interior of the box. He was then surprised to feel that something suddenly bit his hands. The box transformed into a brush and called him disrespectful. It then asked if he was the one who activated the system. While Chris wondered why it was so empty, the brush dared to disagree. After all, the gate of the underworld is just right beneath his feet. His face paled, filled with dread upon realizing what was happening. The whole place began to shake, while the brush confirmed his death. Chris couldn't believe it. He couldn't accept that he was dead. He remembered his last memories of struggling against the enemy, gritting his teeth while they stepped on him. He remembered how they killed him back when he was in the dungeon. His face was filled with dread upon remembering them, and he let out an agonizing cry filled with despair upon realizing his fate. The brush couldn't help but call him out for making a mess in a public place. Chris only wanted to cure his illness and become an adventurer. Seeing his mood, the brush offered to comfort him and said life isn't worth living anyway. He then told him to stop dawdling as they needed to continue inside. The gates of the underworld opened slowly. The brush told him to come along, while he asked what happens to him after he dies. The brush remarked how he's accepting the truth of his situation pretty quickly. As they arrived at the place, Chris wondered why it was so dark. The torches then lit up by themselves as they passed by. There he learned that this large room was actually a trial site for the dead. He stared at the place in awe, to which the brush called him a country bumpkin. Suddenly, Chris noticed something from behind and turned around. When he looked, he saw a giant figure of a man wearing a royal robe. The brush told him to pay respects to the body of King Yama. Seeing that he's clueless, the brush berated him as he explained who he is. It turns out that dead souls come to the underworld to be judged. Evil people will fall into hell to be punished for eternity, and King Yama is the only one who can judge them as the ruler of the underworld. Chris finally remembered the mythology about a god who writes the lifespans of the living. Now that he's realized it, he frantically asks why Yama was dead. Seeing that he's skeptical, the brush gestured to the writings on the wall. Chris looked at it, wondering what was engraved on the wall. He finds it strange that the language is unfamiliar, but he can read it. He figured out that these engravings are records. He also saw that the damage next to it is from a mural. He was surprised to see that this is about King Yama fighting against someone. He also found some other unclear contents next to it, but combining them with the text, the general meaning becomes clear. Yama was defeated and beheaded, and his body was buried here, and the wall is full of his accusations and resentment towards someone. It's now clear to him, this is a war between the rulers of the world. The system then presented him with a mission to find the real head of Yama. This is the trial that the brush has mentioned earlier, allowing him to revive upon completion. He was surprised when the brush revealed that he was only half dead. Chris was so annoyed and knocked him out before checking the mission. He contemplated his situation, weighing the pros and cons, but seeing the reward that can cure his illness, he was very tempted to click yes and accept the task. Several heads appeared, hovering in the air as he accepted the mission. They began looking at him with strange expressions, but to his surprise, more heads appeared and surrounded him. He looked around confused, wondering what these heads are. The trial has begun, and only one among these heads is real. But there are countless heads, and he's not sure how he can find the real head. The brush said it wouldn't be called a trial if it was easy. With this, Chris had no choice but to check them one by one. Figuring out he would take a long time doing so, he began looking around for clues, but he saw no hints, and the rules seemed to be hidden. That was when he figured out that the hint must be hidden in the text. Upon glancing at it, he immediately understood what he was looking for. He wasted no time and began digging into the pile of heads in front of him. The brush continued bothering him for the secret, but Chris ignored him and focused on searching. The brush even teased him, saying he knows the answer and can help him. That was when he finally got the head and exclaimed in delight. The head he's holding matches the inscription, a face with a large scar. He then turned to the brush and asked, but the brush only stepped back. He wondered why the brush stepped back, only to notice the eye of the head glowing with purple energy. That was when he finally realized what was going on. The head exploded with so much force right before his face. Chris gritted his teeth as he was sent down to the pile of heads behind him. The brush spoke with sarcastic empathy, pitying him for his wrong answer. Chris believes he interpreted the inscription correctly, so he wonders what his flaw is. He stood up, speculating that there should be another condition that fits. The brush continued teasing him, saying he'll tell him a secret. The trial has a time limit of until the black and white impermanents eliminated the intruders. His death activated the system, which started to operate according to preset rules. The black and white impermanents are safeguards meant to eliminate those who killed the player, meaning everyone including his friends would be killed by those two. He then worried for Kia and the others' safety. Thinking about them, he knew he had to hurry and find the answer. He began digging more ferociously at the pile of heads laid down in front of him. After all, everyone's lives are at stake. The heads flew around as he kept digging around the mountain. That was when he saw a familiar head from somewhere quite far. He immediately leaped to reach out for the head. He was barely able to get his hands on it, but he continued pushing forward with determination. However, the other heads near him exploded before he could reach the head. The heads flew into a mess, and Yamasi's head flung even farther from him. Chris desperately reached his hands out to get Yama's head, but he slowly sunk beneath the pile. After a moment, he abruptly woke up and wondered if he passed out. The brush revealed he was unconscious for about 20 minutes. The reason for the explosion is because he has triggered a trap. Hearing that he only has 2 minutes left now, he was stunned. But the shock gradually turned into smiles and uncontrollable laughter. Seeing this, the brush wondered why he had suddenly gone crazy. Chris accepted that everything is nothing but a dark joke. He knew it's similar to online strategy guides where dark dungeons toy with people's minds. The dungeon rules constantly give people hope and despair through tormenting their mind. The brush seemed to panic after seeing that Chris had given up. The latter knew that this dungeon was just playing with him. It's as if there's a demon behind the portal, entertaining himself by watching. Chris thought he stupidly believed this was his second chance in life. He then coldly glanced at the brush, wondering if it seemed happy. He then turned around, saying it is none of his business. The brush kept frantically moving all around the place. Pissed, it then suddenly yelled to be careful. Seeing all this, Chris wondered what it was saying. Suddenly, he noticed that the countless heads from the trial were floating. In this room, heads float as if in zero gravity but fall down afterwards. He poked one of the heads, thinking it's like a stick stirring the water. He then had a breakthrough, echoing the words as he realized the hidden meaning. He recalled the scriptures written on the walls earlier, finally figuring out how to overcome the trial. He knew that just guessing won't help, so he decided to test it. He looked up and observed the position of the heads, including the brush. He then raised his hand, preparing to try again. He then turned his head back against the brush, trying his luck again. If he's right, he knows that something will happen. Seeing the head suddenly streak past through her, the brush wondered what was happening. The brush barely evaded the head that almost hit her, angrily asking what was happening. She then turned to him and asked what he did this time, to which he played it cool. The brush thought he can't let Chris mess around like this or he'll find out sooner or later. She told him to just give up and reincarnate into a good life, to which he asked why she's suddenly talking nicely to him. Seeing the brush panic, Chris was certain that he had already found the answer. The inscriptions and murals are key hints, but there is another crucial point to solve the trial, and that is the system box at the very beginning mentioning that this is a solo mission. At first, he thought it was just a protective measure to prevent King Yama's corpse from being disturbed, but then he realized that the real head is always fixed behind the solver, changing positions depending on where he faced. But even if he already knew the position of the manhwa, there's still one last step. He then turned around, alarming the brush. He wondered how he should retrieve the head fixed behind him and place it on the body. He figured out that climbing isn't an option. He remembered that there was an old friend mentioned in the scripture earlier. Maybe it was related to that. He continued trying to solve the puzzle, while the brush was agitated. Suddenly, Chris abruptly stared at the brush, confusing the latter as she asked what he was looking at. Then, he finally figured out the one thing that the enemy wouldn't do: courtesy. He approached Yama's body, making the brush wonder what he is about to do this time. He brought his hands together, looking down as he wore a serious look while trying the answer he had found. As he lowered his head, the king's head behind him gradually approached its own body, but then he wondered why nothing was happening yet. As he looked up, he wondered why the head was placed up its hat instead. He figured out that Yama is the lord of the underworld, and he must bow to him instead. With this in mind, he knelt down in front of the king's body. He then bowed down with his head almost touching the floor. This act of courtesy and submission was displayed, bringing Yama's head back to its own body. Powerful crimson energy then crackled as the head was placed back to its body. King Yama's head then opened its eyes, staring forward as he emitted ominous energy. The system then congratulated him for completing the trial, rewarding him with the Meng Pose soup. Chris felt a powerful magic flowing into him. He then smiled, delighted that the magical illness he had was gone. Upon the completion of the trial, the system rewarded him with a job, the intern of the underworld. Seeing this, Chris couldn't help but wonder if this is a hidden job. The brush was utterly enraged, threatening to eat him alive. He then turned and asked if it's really necessary for her to be angry. But upon seeing her open her mouth and bare her fangs towards him, Chris figured out that the brush is being serious with eating him. Wasting no time, it then lunged into him, devouring him in one go. Everything went black, but he still could hear their voices welcoming Yama's return. Later, the brush was heard frantically apologizing to King Yama while the room was filled with silhouettes. Meanwhile, Chris felt he couldn't go on, and his consciousness was slowly fading. As he fainted, several tall figures were seen standing in front of him and ordered the brush to send him out. The selection trials of the various kings have ended already. The plan was thwarted, and now Yama has lost a successor. With this, he had no choice but to bet on Chris and see how he fares. The rest depends on his fate. Because of their risky job, adventurers are recognized as the wealthiest people in the world. And in this age, crowds gathered outside the portal are a common sight. There are always families losing loved ones in the dungeons, and bringing back their body is a fortune already. In the morgue, Chris' voice echoed as he yelled, wondering where he was and begging to be released. When the narrow chamber was opened, he heaved a sigh of relief and thanked the one who opened it. To his surprise, it was none other than the brush. Chris was so terrified that he instinctively threw his fist on her face. Moments later, the brush had explained why he was in the morgue. Chris speculated that the safety officers must have realized something was wrong when no one returned from the dungeon for a long time. It means no one survived in the Grim Reaper's grasp, prompting him to ask if there were any other survivors. The brush said there were 2 more, but they'll have to leave that place first. The elevator released a sharp beep as the mortician finally arrived. He was so exhausted from running back and forth to tend to the multiple injured adventurers, but as he was rambling, Chris suddenly ran past him. He then angrily turned and told him to stop right there. He scolded him for running around the place, asking if he even knows where they are. But realizing they were in the morgue and there was someone running around, he fainted. Chris panicked, wondering what to do now, while the brush told him to just keep moving. He then put the mortician aside and silently escaped the morgue. Outside the building, a woman's voice echoed as she frantically apologized over the phone. She politely promised to take care of the situation and thanked the one on the other line for their hard work. As she continued rambling, behind her was Chris, who was looking around and hoping no one would recognize him. Suddenly, she heard his voice and made her turn around, but looking around, she found no traces of the one who had just yelled. Back at his neighborhood, Chris finally found his way home. He entered the door to his house without a word. The brush asked if he was living in a place like that, to which he asked if he was unsatisfied. She said that the underworld is much more spacious than that place, to which he retorted that property prices there are pretty low. The brush asked where his family is, to which Chris threw himself in the bed and revealed he's living alone. He looked up at the ceiling with empty eyes, revealing his parents disappeared in a dungeon when he was young. He can still vividly remember their images as he wondered why they never returned. He too was once someone who lingered anxiously at the portal, unable to find peace. The brush offered to comfort him, to which he asked if he wanted to clean the toilet instead. Countless rare professions have appeared, like a necromancer, an oracle, as well as a charioteer. They're all hidden professions that are considered relics of the past. He continued searching the internet to find traces of his profession, but seeing there was none, he couldn't help but think that his underworld internship is a hidden profession. Now that he has a rare profession, he wonders that maybe he could be an adventurer too, but he contemplated whether continuing as an adventurer is really the right choice. After all, there are those evil people who openly exploit low-level adventurers like him. He gritted his teeth, frustrated why those people hold so much power. He recalled how Lucas treated him last time and wondered what would happen if he met him again. He couldn't help but clench his fist tightly in anger and frustration, wondering if he could survive. He sighed upon seeing things are so complicated for him, but pondered on how he'll survive if he doesn't pursue being an adventurer. Meanwhile, the brush foolishly mistaken the broom for her boyfriend. Then, Chris finally got up from his bed and decided to check what skills he has now. He chanted the command to check his skills, only to be met with silence after nothing had happened. The brush played with the broom while explaining he's only a level 1 adventurer, but he shouldn't worry since the system has already given him a gift. At the system panel, he saw a quest telling him to go to the Adventurers Association. He immediately complied and went to their building, wondering what the quest wanted him to do there. The brush came out and made him panic, to which she explained that only Chris can see her. To his further surprise, the brush suddenly ran off to a restricted place. As he followed her, they saw the awakening chamber where people kill their first monster to awaken their skills. She was surprised and asked if the whole building was just for awakening, to which he said they could do everything there. Suddenly, she shivered as she sniffed something in the air. She then looked up above, frantically asking why she could sense the magic from the countless portals. He then explained that every association branch has public portal Rs for low-level adventurers. She then praised him for knowing a lot despite being a useless level 1, pissing him off. Suddenly, an adventurer in heavy metal armor bumped into him. He scolded him for standing in the way, to which he apologized. He then used a skill to check Chris' status panel, looking at him with disdain. The brush remarked that his personality is awful, seeing him unfazed, but he explained that that guy also bowed to someone with more power. But seeing that the other man doesn't seem that strong, the brush looked at humans with disgust. Suddenly, the system panel appeared in front of Chris. He was then surprised to see the content of the mission panel. Presenting him an uncertain reward, the mission urged him to select a dungeon at the association. Seeing that it was just this easy, Chris was all fired up to take the mission. But once he was inside, his expression suddenly turned into dread. He then angrily choked the brush, asking why he was the only one who came inside. Chris angrily demanded an explanation, while the quest told him to clear the dungeon alone. He said that the minimum head count of a dungeon raid is 4 adventurers, so he can't do this alone. Earlier, the receptionist told him to choose the dungeon he'd like to enter, and they will match him with a team shortly. He had difficulty choosing a dungeon, considering the difficulty and monster types. The brush's patience had run out, and she suddenly clicked the screen to choose a dungeon. The two of them fought over it as Chris didn't like what she did. The receptionist then told him that the elf's graveyard has been registered for his application. Feeling guilty, the brush decided to give him an extra life-saving skill to help him. But the system won't cooperate with her and gave a quest for Chris to slap the brush in the face. Chris angrily grabbed the brush, while she explained that Meng Po's soup and his life will be forfeited if he abandoned the task. Chris was taken aback after hearing this, contemplating his situation. He gradually loosened his grip on the brush. With this, he had no choice since he can't give up the gift from the first task. He activated the Hellfire skill, conjuring white flames in his right hand. On his left hand, he then activated the Paperman skill. He was delighted to see this doppelganger skill has a confusion effect. He never thought that slapping the brush would earn him such valuable skills like these. His current resources include the Hellfire and Paperman skill, as well as a few bottles of potions, but just these won't be enough, so he has to identify the correct route to avoid monsters. He opened up his almanac, learning that this dungeon is filled with aquatic predators and traps. The brush asked why the association's goal is not to defeat the boss, to which he said so they could reuse the dungeon. Using this method, the association can train the adventurers, making the brush exclaim that they were cheating. But before he begins the strategy, he needs to confirm one more thing. He then knelt down and touched his magic boots. Afterward, he stepped forward while planning to confirm if he really can use magic now, and then, his eyes widened in delight. He then ran happily around the water, exclaiming his magic poison is really cured. Now that he has confirmed it, he's ready to embark on the journey of raiding the dungeon. Consulting the map, he decided that he'll slowly make his way across. He felt like he was sightseeing as long as he didn't run into any monsters. He then told the brush to not go near the starfish because it was aggressive. On their way, they noticed a soul-form frog which serves as a lookout post. So far, Chris was enjoying it since he hasn't met any monsters yet, but he already expected that the system would task him with defeating at least one monster. Seeing this, he angrily lashed out on the brush, as he suspected she reported him. With this, he had no choice but to look for at least one monster. As he was walking, he came across a duck man who was holding a trident. He felt lucky since this monster usually travels in packs, but then, the monster suddenly yelled, panicking at the sight of him. Seeing it run away, Chris knew he couldn't let it escape and alert its companions. He figured out that he needed to destroy the wooden whistle on its chest so that it wouldn't be able to call for help. He then activated his Hellfire skill, but was hesitant since the target is too small to aim properly. Suddenly, the brush angrily told him to attach the hell flame residue to his weapon. He was stunned, surprised that the brush suddenly gave him advice. Finally understanding the situation, he summoned his weapon and imbued hell flame in it. His swing tore an arc through the air as he attacked the duckman. The duckman yelled in agonizing pain as the hell flames began consuming him. Upon seeing the capability of his skill, he couldn't help but be amazed. As he approached, he saw the monster on the ground, desperately begging for mercy. The brush noticed this and turned to Chris, asking him if they should let this monster go. But it wasn't being sincere, as it secretly grabbed his spear from behind. It then launched forward to attack him, only to get stabbed in the throat by Chris's weapon. He knew that this was a dungeon, and begging in front of an enemy is meaningless. The brush said she thought he was going to lose his life there, to which he scolded her for not telling him. Upon checking his stats, he saw that half of his mana was used just in that one attack. With this, he decided to consume one mana potion to recover his lost mana. The brush then asked him why he uses a toothpick, to which he explained it is a rapier. Anyway, his attention was caught by the fact that the quest hasn't been completed yet. The mission was still the same, and the panel says he hasn't defeated the monster yet. Little did he know, the duckman had survived and was planning to blow onto his whistle. Only when the whistle shrieked did Chris realize his grave mistake as he turned around. He realized that he didn't hit the vital spot. The duckman finally died due to its injuries, as reported by the mission panel, but countless duckmen are now swarming within the waters approaching him. They then leaped into the air, while Chris stared at them in shock. He wondered what he had to do now, and how he should fight them all. Seeing that there's a lot of them, he wondered if he could finish them all off in one go. He then turned around, thinking that there must be a way out of this situation. He then extended his hand and grabbed for one puzzle piece, saying the answer is right there. Chris turned his gaze below, grabbing the thing he needed to survive. He pulled out the string on his bag, triggering a massive explosion in the area. The duck monsters coughed with Chris finding an opportunity to take them down. Brush and the ducks tried to look for him, but they couldn't. Chris decided to swim far away while looking at them from underwater. He then deactivated his Hellfire skill as he ascended. The duckman's swimming speed and underwater vision are better than him, so he won't be able to escape. His brows furrowed, seeing something from afar. He got alerted as he noticed that someone was rushing towards him. It was Brush who scolded him for sneaking away, causing him to gurgle. Chris covers his mouth as he runs out of breath. The duckmen then notice something underwater. The duckmen rush towards them, causing Brush to panic. Chris runs as fast as he can as the duckmen swim across the water. He cursed as he realized that there's only one path to go. Chris jumps from one rock to another as he escapes. He lands on the water with his one knee. An explosion took place, causing him to jump out of water. He gritted his teeth, thinking that there were more enemies. He found out that there were a lot of enemies attracted from the explosion that happened earlier. The duckman then rushed towards his direction. It smirked at him while gesturing its hand. Having no choice, he activated his paper doll's skill and summoned his own weapon. The duckman stood before him, waiting for him to settle. Covered with energy, his paper dolls suddenly came to life. The duckman rushed towards him and slashed him with rage. He clenched his teeth in pain, wondering why the skill wasn't working. Brush told him that he forgot to draw his eyes. She then squeezed an ink for him to help. Chris grabbed her and reminded him to draw the eyes accurately. The duck's eyes glowed in red as it quacked to call others out. The duckmen suddenly surged forward with their weapons aiming at him. Chris was hit by a trident, deeming it heavy. Having no chance to escape, he welcomed all their strikes. The dolls still haven't moved from their place, while Chris gritted his teeth in rage as he can't go any longer. He swung his rapier with hellfire imbued to it, causing the duckmen to back down. The duckmen quack in pain as they felt the dangerous fire. He once again swung his sword as he leapt away, telling them to stay away. With his mana burning too fast, he decided to go to the dolls quickly. An energy suddenly engulfed the paper doll. He then swung the brush around to draw their eyes. Their eyes suddenly turned red, with Chris being confused as they ran around. But Brush cleared that they had come to life. The ducks became confused as they saw those dolls look alike. Chris ordered the dolls as they charged towards the enemies. But those dolls were just literally weak, being trampled by the ducks. He then followed Brush's suggestion to escape while they were busy. Chris growled in pain as he noticed the wound from the earlier fight. He continued walking slowly, deciding to find a place to bandage it. Holding the wall, his eyes widened as he noticed something. He wondered what the door was as he sensed a strong magical power inside. He then looked at the map to find out. He was shocked to realize that it was the boss room, thinking that it was sealed. With a devastating look, he wonders why the door was open. Chris turned his head as he heard the duckmen catching up. He got alarmed and decided to leave immediately. He froze when a beam suddenly hit the wall beside him. He looked in front, only to realize that they were surrounded. The duckmen gave him a menacing look, but later they froze as if their souls left their bodies. Chris' brows furrowed as he wondered why they became so timid. His eyes suddenly widened in fear as he realized that they're scared of something else. A massive whale carrying a weapon while a wide grin suddenly appeared on his back. He turned his gaze with his eyes widened in fear. At the Adventurers Association, a man was talking to someone from his phone. The manager asked what was the commotion, with them saying that a level 3 adventurer entered a portal. He fell into a thought when he heard that the seal had broken off. He raised his hand, asking for the adventurer's information. With his brows furrowed, he thought that the adventurer was a fool for doing it. He saw Chris's profile, wondering if he was an undiscovered talent. He then opened the file for more information, only to find out that he entered the dungeon 12 times. He grabbed his tie and tossed the file while dismissing it as he could. He deemed it a serious issue because the association wanted them to find out. Meanwhile, the whale was looming before Chris. It then tossed its massive weapon, sending him in a distance. Chris landed on the stone, wincing in pain. He was shaking as he looked at his broken weapon, while Brush urged him to run. The boss once again raised its massive weapon, killing the duckmen around the area. Chris realized that the boss planned to take out the duckmen first, giving him an opportunity to run away from the scene with Brush urging him to escape. He told her that they can't escape unless the boss had been defeated. He remembered that his backpack was knocked off from the last attack. He decided to grab it for some smoke bombs and a bottle of mana. The system panel showed up with its final quest to defeat the dungeon boss. Chris gritted his teeth as he felt the wind getting stronger. It was the boss' massive weapon hitting the water, causing Brush to scream. The massive weapon reflected on Chris's eyes. It then landed on the water with him being able to leap above and dodge it instinctively. He lost another paper doll as it got destroyed by the weapon, but he found a perfect time to activate his hellfire and channeled it towards the boss. Chris was sent away by the impact, landing on the water. He managed to grab the backpack while asking Brush if they won, but the boss suddenly showed up in front of him. He got hit and tossed around with him growling in so much pain. He gritted his teeth as he cursed. He then landed on the water as he canceled his skill. He once again grabbed his backpack with his mana almost depleted. He turned his head, finding out that the boss was still alive and well. His eyes suddenly widened because he was badly injured. As the boss raised its massive weapon, he looked down in defeat as he couldn't clear the dungeon. The system panel suddenly showed up, giving him a warning because the task will fail. Chris grabbed his arm, thinking what he had gone through for it to end quickly. With eager resolve, he clenched his fist in determination because he does not want to die. Brush was rushing, saying she still had a way. The boss created a massive explosion as his weapon landed on the water, with all the things being wiped out. Brush suddenly appeared, creating waves on the water with her lecturing him. She then told him to listen up because she will only say it once. Chris grabbed her as she instructed and poured his mana because she can transform into various things. He gazed at the boss in front of him, testing his willpower. He raised Brush with eagerness to kill the monster with one hit. He knew that the boss would take the provocation and hit its hammer at him. The boss suddenly swims, leaving only its afterimages, which makes him confused. He raised his weapon with him only moving in adrenaline. He then recalled how the boss launched an attack, visibly reading its pattern. With all his might, his eyes glowed as he shouted. The boss's hammer nearly hit his back, prompting Brush to shout. The attack landed, but he managed to evade it. Chris expected that it would happen as he ascended. He suddenly swung his weapon as he found an opportunity, leaving a large arc that hit the boss. The boss couldn't move because of the massive wound. Chris held the weapon tightly as he knew it wasn't over still. With the last bit of his mana, he activated his hellfire to the boss's wound. The boss fell on the water with fire all over its body. Chris then transformed Brush once again. With eagerness, he followed up an attack on the boss, prompting Brush to feel the heat. Chris revealed that the fire is only to break the heavy armor and find its weak spot. The system panel showed up, announcing that he cleared the solo dungeon challenge. Upon seeing it, he screamed in happiness. With only little energy left, he declared his success as he reached level 4. He then acquired an ability in which he can use various forms of the Judgment Brush. And then his Hellfire skill reached its maximum proficiency. Chris lay down as his adrenaline faded with Brush complaining about her hair. Being tired, he apologized to her and gave his gratitude. He then suddenly realized that it was Brush's main use, prompting her to complain once again. At the Adventurers Association, Chris told the receptionist about the boss room's seal being broken off. Brush told him that he's alive and asked what's the use of it, in which he answered that he just got lucky. The receptionist smiled at him, assuring that they had received his feedback. Someone told him not to worry, which confused him. It was Jin, the manager of the Adventurers Association. Jin showed up with a dark aura. He then recognized Chris and congratulated him for clearing the E dungeon alone. He then walks towards them. Chris then heads home with Brush, asking if it was enough, in which he assured. Jin wonders because he actually received a death certificate from the hospital. He then told the receptionist to get back to work. The phone rings suddenly on the table. It was Lucas, answering the phone with Jin on the line. Jin asked the dungeon with him, answering that he was taking care of it and labeling it as an accident. Jin suspected that someone had taken the rewards. He was enraged, ordering Lucas to take care of everything. Meanwhile, Chris was complaining how much his body hurts and the loot he gained in the dungeon. The receptionist told him the little loot he obtained, but it belongs to the association with only a little share. Looking at his phone, he had received the reward from the association, but the system panel showed up, confusing him about the reward. It then summarized the quest he had conquered, giving him a congratulatory reward of stretching pills, which enhanced his physical ability. His mouth parted as he cursed upon seeing it. He deemed the reward huge because it will help him overcome the hurdle of a newbie. He revealed that the highest level of adventurers right now is 45. After reaching level 5, it is extremely difficult to level up. The adventurers then rely heavily on equipment to defeat monsters. Due to the association's unfair loot claims, adventurers rely only on physical training to get stronger, so the reward he had received is incredibly important for him. The system panel then asked him to unlock the second reward. A few days later, at the H-City Adventurer Archive, Chris was eager to know his class, in which Brush told him that it was special. The reason why he was persistent was because of his attribute screen. With tears in his eyes, he decided to ignore the comment first. He then looked around and saw other stats also being commented. He was shocked when the comments became utterly absurd. Although his stats are higher than ordinary people, it's still unclear if it was between another adventurer. He then wonders if it was the main focus of his class, like those mages who specialize in burst-type classes, and the bard that uses music for support. He wonders if the underworld intern specializes in death. Brush suddenly hit his face, lecturing him because he called their class a weak one. Brush told him to listen up because their class can control life and death. He told Brush that the power of the Judgment Pen is a myth, saying that she doesn't look powerful. Brush rushed towards him, saying that it was because he hadn't acquired the full set of items yet. He told him the book in which the Hell King writes the judgment and death dates. Chris told her that Necromancer class is common today, which pierces through her. She told him that those who steal the soul are just a bunch of nothing. Brush wasn't able to continue what she's saying because she instantly got static. She then told him that the information is beyond the system's scope. He thought that all of those he had seen lately are out of a game appearing in the real world. Upon investigating, he found out that someone actually entered a dungeon with mythical beings, but he found no record of a trial and an adventurer with a system. He wonders why he was the only one who gained powers. Brush scolded him, saying that he had been too loud. She added that he already got them, which confused him, but Brush scolded him again. He curiously asked why he had the qualifications to do God's trial. He got out of the association as he finally got some clues about the system. He looked around, hearing the news of what happened during their raid. He thought that someone pulled a string behind it. He then clenched his fist and swore to be stronger. He looked up to Brush and asked who were the survivors, but even she didn't know. He looked it up on his phone, but found nothing about the survivors. The next day at the city central hospital, Chris pretended to be a family of those survivors and asked the nurse. The nurse told him most of them died and asked if he saw them on the list. Meanwhile, a bunch of people were walking in the corridor. Suddenly, a monster's eye appeared above the girl. The civilians panicked while being caught up with the monster's tentacles. They all shouted as the massive monster showed up. A yellow-haired girl scolded her assistant for making her come to the hospital. She suddenly stopped when a tentacle coiled around her body. She shouted in fear as the monster lifted her up away, prompting the assistant to call for her. The people around were shocked upon seeing the monster's tentacles. The others got cut off when a bunch of tentacles surged towards them, prompting the guy to react instantly to protect the others. The room was filled with screams when the monster got them. Chris' eyes widened, wondering why a monster suddenly showed up in the hospital. He was in disbelief, seeing it chase after the civilians. A tentacle then grabbed him, but a teleportation portal suddenly appeared. The people that were caught up with the portal wonder what that place is. The girl in pink suddenly shouted that there's something in front, prompting all of them to look in the direction she was pointing to. Chris's mouth parted as the system showed up, announcing a mission. His eyes widened, seeing the panel in front of him. It then instructed him to save the Frog Kingdom from destruction and receive the Princess Kiss. The warriors that got summoned had different reactions about it, with some being delighted. Chris realized that the portal is out of control, with Brush telling him that they should investigate more. He noticed that 12 people got caught and only 2 are non-adventurers. Among the stronger were the 2 level 9 guys who seemed to be excited, and a level 8 guy in black who seemed happy about the princess. But the people inside were debating about going in or not. Chris's brows furrowed, thinking that they should stop this as soon as possible. The people deemed the brothers arrogant while the others don't give them attention. Chris halted the brothers and told them not to act recklessly because they don't know the danger inside. One of the brothers suddenly grabbed his head, while the other one grabbed his collar and threatened him, but he retaliated. They then mocked his level and accused him of wanting to steal their loot. Chris gritted his teeth in pain while they refused to listen. The pink-haired got alerted as she was about to move. One of the brothers clenched his teeth in rage, but the guy in black grabbed his hand to stop him as he agreed with Chris. He then bursted that the guy's killing intent was leaking out while Chris gave his gratitude. The girl scolded him and told him that people in unregulated portals kill for loot. Brush just went in silence as she got lost in thought. 2 people walked towards the captain and told him that they don't want to die. Chris smiled at them and told them not to worry because it's just the portal's background. The portal is like a mirror that reflects the myths and stories from the human world. The girl refused to join them because she came from a wealthy family. Chris looked devastated and doubted if the raid would work. The frog princess suddenly showed up in front of them, prompting all of them to look at her in utter shock and disgust. The captain froze as his face turned pale. He knelt on the ground and vomited while calling it a dark joke. And suddenly, the frog princess smashed the captain right before their eyes. The princess loomed over them as the 2 watched the captain's corpse. His comrades suddenly called him out in fear and shock, while Chris shouted at them not to act too rashly. The frog princess detected hostility and instantly killed them in front. Chris gritted his teeth, thinking that the dungeon had absolute rules. The other people suddenly ran away, but the pink-haired girl named Arya stopped them. The brothers smirked widely, thinking how interesting it was. Churs realized that the 3 were sentenced to death due to some violations. Brush told him that this isn't a normal portal, but a god-ancient one. She revealed that the god inside the portal is broken, so the system is incomplete. Chris's brows furrowed, thinking about the bugs Brush had mentioned. Those who tried to run away also got killed by the princess. Chris decided to stop them and told them to calm down because they will die if they leave. He revealed that there is an absolute rule inside, and if they leave they will abandon the mission. The wealthy girl named Goldie furiously asked why they should trust a level 4 like him. Chris then told her to leave and see what happened, which made her tremble. Arya once again spoke up and told them to calm down, telling them that Chris had a point. She then smiled at him, saying that he had some guts while thanking him. The guy then curiously asked if they have to accept the mission, in which others affirmed. Arya accepted the mission while threatening that her dad won't let him off if she dies. The system panel announced that they had accepted the mission, only for them to realize that Chris was right. The whole place trembled while Goldie complained about it. The mission started, and in order to save the kingdom, they had to defeat the Swarm army. The armies swarm in front of the castle, coming towards the players. Chris stayed in silence, while Brush got the hint that he had something in mind. With eager resolve, Chris decided to do something for the people inside the portal. Goldie complained because they were getting teleported again, while the brothers smirked arrogantly. The other two panicked, while Arya complained of being teleported alone. The system panel announced that they should exterminate bugs in various locations. A massive blue fire suddenly appeared as Chris stepped forward. While killing the bugs, he realized that everyone was split to increase the difficulty. The girl he is with pointed the bugs above them, making him look up. Chris suddenly smirked, while Brush scolded him and told him to burn the bugs all at once. The bugs suddenly surged towards them as he ordered the girl to hide behind him. The girl instantly followed and quickly leaned on his back. He complained that she was too close, prompting her to apologize. He activated his Hellfire skill and burned all the bugs from above. He then turned his gaze as he noticed something. It was the brothers going somewhere else. The system detected that someone left their position, so they dispersed the remaining bugs. The bugs once again respawn in front of them, while Brush ordered him to deal with it. He curses internally as he burns the bugs in front of him. The system panel appeared, announcing someone's death. He got alerted, thinking that death was faster than expected. Brush complained and told him not to hold back, wanting to burn them all at once. Chris then raised his hand and let out a massive hellfire, killing all the bugs. The monsters got burned as they watched them fall. The system panel then announced that the area had been cleared. The girl thanked him while he told her to help others. The two of them instantly run to look for others to minimize the casualties. Arya was crying for help as the bugs chased after her. Chris quickly told her to stay behind him. He decided not to hold back anymore and burned those who were chasing Arya. The monsters slowly disintegrate midair. Arya praised him for being strong and asked if he didn't die. She told him that she got several notifications of people dying, leaving Chris confused. He then revealed that each of them received a death notification, prompting Arya to ask. He revealed that it was a trick to confuse them and make their willpower crumble. Chris clenched his teeth, being done with the system's game. His brows furrowed, thinking that it wasn't simple and something is definitely coming. The system panel popped up, giving them a mission to survive until the end. They then decided to find other survivors, with Chris ordering the two to look together. He decided to find the brothers because he was sure that they would find the boss room. Chris witnessed two corpses in front of him, recognizing that it was the other two. His eyes glowed in rage, thinking that they died because of someone's greed. He recalled how he got tortured by the others. Something caught his attention, prompting him to turn his head. Chris witnessed the brothers fighting over the massive dungeon boss. The two started bickering as the other one nearly hit his brother. He wiped off the side of his lips, noticing Chris' presence at the door entrance. The latter clenched his fist, filled with rage and intent to kill. He recalled how the nurse told him that the two survivors died on the spot. He realized that the brothers will do everything to get the equipment they needed to level up. With eager resolve, he swore to take the loot from them because they trample the life of others. The two of them kept on fighting with the boss, firing bullets against it. A massive explosion took place, sending the boss in a distance. The boss landed on the ground, with its body being frozen from the force. The big bro stepped on the monster with a smirk and told his little bro to quickly finish it. Without hesitation, Chris took a step towards them. The big brother warned him in rage as a dark aura flared around him. Brush asked if he was going to do it, but Chris assured him that he would use a different kind of fire. A dark smoke suddenly entered the room. It then quickly killed the monster and left the big brother in shock. The system panel announced that the Chimera is dead, and the Frog Knight has been crowned the hero as they failed the mission. The Frog Knight stood confidently in front of them, holding its weapon. The little brother asked if his big bro is okay, while Chris suspected that it is part of the trial too. The big brother gritted his teeth in rage and cursed the frog for interrupting. Chris hurriedly opened his yin-yang eye panel. He then warned the guy not to underestimate the knight, but he was too late. The little brother angrily shouted towards the knight as he began forging a bullet in his hand. He raised his hand, eager to fire the bullet towards the enemy. The bullet traverses midair, nearly hitting the knight's face. But suddenly, a sharp slash cut through the tip of his ear. There the knight was, ready to fight back. The little brother despairingly called for his big brother, while Chris was stunned upon seeing this development. The system was warning him that the Frog Knight's abilities had surpassed his and encouraged him to escape. The despairing brother yelled as he angrily charged at the Frog Knight, vowing to exact revenge. But he was effortlessly torn to pieces by the Frog Knight's smooth and fluid attack. Suddenly, the mission panel of the Frog Knight was revealed. To win the princess' favor, and gain the throne as a hero. Chris was utterly surprised upon seeing this. He figured out that this is the mission panel of the Frog Knight. While the other adventurers rushed to the place, Chris couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. But before he could warn everyone, the Frog Knight suddenly leaped off from his place. Goldie then shrieked, wondering why the frog was charging at him. She immediately activated her Servant Curse skill to use a person to block the attack. But the frog sliced it effortlessly and turned to Arya to kill her. But suddenly, something flew from afar and hit the knight in the head. The knight turned around, wondering what had just happened. He then took off his robe and sliced through it. He turned to the one who threw it, saying he is a dead meat. Meanwhile, Brush asked why he provoked the frog while he continued to stay in place. But it was only for a moment as he began running away. Angered, the knight swiftly leaped around to chase and stab him. Chris gritted his teeth as he tried to evade the attack. But seeing that they couldn't dodge, Brush decided to bite the blade. But the powerful attack of the frog has sent them away. As they landed afar, Brush complained that her teeth felt numb. The Frog Knight continued chasing after them to attack. The attack is fast and heavy, costing him all his strength just to block it. As the Frog Knight dominated him, he thought that he was over. The Frog Knight landed a devastating kick to his gut, sending him flying away. He slammed into a wall behind him, crushing it into boulders. But suddenly, the Frog Knight noticed that someone was using support magic. From the settling smoke, a silhouette was seen casting healing and mana recovery skills. The Frog Knight immediately backed down upon seeing it. Arya and Goldie immediately rushed to check on Chris. Arya knows they can't fight head-on, but Chris has already seen through the plans of the Frog Knight. Arya asked how he knows so much, to which he didn't answer and clarified their professions. She immediately whipped out his support mage magic bag, suggesting it will be better to hide and wait for rescue. But they are up against an enemy with crazy speed, they can't hide or escape. However, seeing the strong twins earlier get killed, that easily makes them lose courage to fight. Looking at Arya and Goldie, he knew they still have a chance given their skills. He knew that if they worked together, they might actually be able to defeat this monster. But Brush told him that it's totally over now because of the immense gap in level. Still, Chris' face was still burning with the determination to end this thing. Seeing his expression, Brush thought that Chris might actually have a plan. Arya understood what he was planning and expressed her trust in his judgment. Meanwhile, Goldie thought that this plan was insane since they're up against a strong monster. Still, Arya knows they couldn't escape anyway given the enemy's speed. Goldie agreed, but she thinks she'll use them as shields if worse comes to worst. At the association's building, the list of people who got sucked into the hospital was presented. Jin looked at the list, worrying that this would threaten his position. And besides that, the Elven Guild and Golden Consortium were troublesome people who got sucked in. But in particular, he's more worried that the Golden Consortium's young heir's sister got dragged in. Seeing that his phone hadn't stopped ringing, he decided to contact the association. When he answered the phone, he received the news that Chris was also inside. They thought that now is a good chance to get rid of him, but Jin disagreed since they have to rescue them together with Goldie. Turns out that the one on the other line was Lucas, saying they won't have to lift a finger to kill him. He then decided to give Jin a suggestion with a villainous smirk. Jin responded in kind after finally understanding what Lucas was trying to say. Back at the basketball court, Chris and Brush were discussing battle techniques and strategies. Then, Brush angrily scolded him as she noticed a problem in his thinking. She said her anger is reasonable because Chris almost died and Brush was scolded in the underworld. She said that he might know a lot about adventurers, but his understanding of combat concepts is vague. Given that he's a mere level 3, Brush then asked him why he was able to defeat boss monsters of the same level. This made Chris realize that there is indeed a huge power gap between elite monsters and bosses. He didn't really defeat it, but rather he just had strong skills and some luck. Brush then told him that it was natural for him to feel cocky after becoming an adventurer suddenly. Back in the present, Brush continued blocking the attacks from the Frog Knight. In the worst-case scenario, his battle with the Frog Knight now could lead to his death. She added that a team with an average level of 5 has no chance of winning against a monster with real strength above level 9. She then asked what on earth he was thinking back then when he provoked the Frog Knight. The Frog Knight continued pushing forward with his offensive. Meanwhile, Arya used her skills to manipulate objects and distract the enemy. She remembers saying that her profession is the weakest support class, but Chris said he only needed a distraction. So despite uncertainties, Arya agreed with his plan and decided to use his skills to distract the enemy. Meanwhile, Brush apologized to him for being unable to block all the attacks. But looking at the enemy, they can feel its anxiety that it was about to lose its mind. There are no clear standards among adventurer levels. Everything can only be summarized and categorized by those who came before. In their current system, level differences among adventurers of the same class result in noticeable improvements in main abilities. For example, you can clearly see increases in strength and speed observed on the yin-yang vision, so the greater the difference, the harder it is to beat the opponent. And in current experience theory, a 3-level difference makes it nearly impossible for the lower-level adventurer to compete with the higher level. But in actual combat, there are also skill advantages and a counter-relationship between class specialties. Like if a character has high skill or speed, they can dominate their opponent even if all other attributes are equal. This is the reason why they are having a hard time winning against the Frog Knight. A week ago, Chris would have never imagined going against a monster of this level. With this level gap, he will be torn to shreds instantly if he took a direct hit. But it only applies to regular adventurers, unlike him who has Hellfire skill. He observed that the Frog Knight doesn't have tough skin, so his flames will definitely work. Most importantly, it doesn't know the effects of flames or the existence of his papermen. He extended his hands, thinking there's also another type of flame. In a clash between armies, the weaker side can only wait for the strong to act. Suddenly, Chris took a direct hit from the Frog Knight's attack. But to its surprise, he only hit a doppelganger while the real Chris was behind. He seized the opportunity and cast his flames against the frog. But seeing that the frog shook off his burning armor, Chris wondered if the frog knew his flames were undying. However, he noticed that the monster's movements were slowing down. This is the chance for Arya and Goldie to attack, but Goldie suddenly went missing. She finally understood her manipulative tendencies of using others as a shield to protect herself. Just now, she even used her skill to manipulate someone to take the hit for her. Outside, the girl asked her if she's not going to help them since she's an adventurer too. But she suddenly lashes out on her, saying she is being annoying. She's utterly irritated when she says that she only cares about her own survival. She's also frustrated, wondering why her brother hasn't called someone to save her yet. Meanwhile, a sword fell from the sky and struck the ground. It then began shaking, as if being pulled by an invisible force. Suddenly, the sword flew directly towards the Frog Knight's hands. Now, Chris knows that he has to aim for the enemy's vital part, the head. The moment the Frog Knight grabbed his sword, his speed suddenly increased. Chris couldn't dodge the attack completely and got hit. He knelt on the ground as the Frog Knight prepared to attack him. Suddenly, the plushies from above released powerful beams toward the Frog Knight. Arya rushed to check up on him, to which he said he's fine since a paperman blocked the sword for him. Meanwhile, hearing that Goldie suddenly disappeared, the frog immediately turned around. It then glanced at the direction where it could sense Goldie. He was thinking of them as insects. 2 were already eliminated and only 2 remain. It then suddenly dashed forward to chase Goldie, leaving Arya and Chris alone. Seeing this, Arya panicked and asked if Chris could still move. He told him to not panic as he closed his eyes and concentrated. He slowly opened his eyes afterwards, focusing on his new ability. He remembered the practice when he couldn't release his skill. Brush then told him that he was using his skills incorrectly, to which he asked why. His original flame was revealed to be the first spark of the Hellfire, which cannot be extinguished, and his upgraded fire is the Hellfire Embers, born from souls as its fuel as he pointed it to the frog. Chris held his breath as he tried using the Hellfire Ember skill, to which Brush angrily smacked him in the face. She said that this is why she calls him a theory-obsessed nerd, as using skills relies on the magic in his body. Hopeless, Chris wonders why it worked the first time he did it like that. She then told him to use the coordination between mana and skill. His body must guide the channeling of mana to release it, completing the process of exerting power. In his case, he must think how it felt when he first released the first stage of the flames, but seeing that he doesn't make progress, Brush tried her very best to be patient with him. As he wondered how one could see the soul, Chris got up and looked forward. Thinking that mana is the engine of the skill, he entered a dark room. He did his best, finding that engine inside that room. When he finally found it, he knew he had to light the fire. Upon activation, black mana surged from inside that room. However, he still failed to release his Hellfire Ember despite doing that and collapsed. Arya yelled in worry, asking him what was wrong. Meanwhile, Chris felt like he instantly consumed more than half of his mana. He remembered Brush's advice to never let this skill burn through all of his mana. Turns out that it doesn't just consume mana, but burns it all. Now that he's realized it, Chris opened his eyes. Before him, he saw everything in his vision change. He can now see the Frog Knight who was pursuing Goldie. It's clear in his eyes, as if the Frog Knight became transparent when he was able to see his soul. While it approached Goldie, the latter used his skill to manipulate the girl and make her take the hit for her. While she desperately screamed for help, Chris was trembling as he forcefully tried to activate his skill. He gritted his teeth as the Hellfire Ember began burning wildly. At Goldie's side, the girl fell to the ground while she stood still. Black embers began consuming the Frog Knight as he released a powerful sword slash toward Goldie, But in no time, the hellfire embers began consuming the entirety of his body. It gritted its teeth as the flames slowly ate away through his very existence. But Chris continued activating this skill. He can see his mana burning away fast. Still, it was powerful enough to almost instantly incinerate the soul of the Frog Knight. Just a bit more, and the hell flames will finally extinguish its soul. While maintaining it, Chris thought he wanted to use these flames to burn those enemies of his. The Frog Knight began turning into ashes as the hell flame embers consumed him. Suddenly, Brush worriedly called for Chris to stop what he was doing. That was when he finally felt the backlash of using such an overpowered skill. It began eating at him too. He knelt on the ground, wincing in pain as Brush told him that she already warned him not to exhaust his mana. Arya was utterly surprised, wondering who Chris really is for using such an overpowered flame skill. Brush told him to quickly cut off his mana, or else he'll burn himself. Only then did the flames begin dissipating off his hands. Arya immediately knelt to offer treatment for Chris. But to her surprise, she found out that she can't restore his mana. Meanwhile, the system notified them that the Frog Knight had been defeated. A pillar of light then struck Chris, signifying his leveling up upon quest completion. But then, he feels strange that he can't feel anything. Meanwhile, Brush heaved a sigh after seeing that Chris was fine. What surprised her more was that she thought he was just an ordinary fool with only more knowledge than most. But deep down, he seems to possess something that is neither black nor white. Even though she didn't understand what had happened, she decided to just dismiss it. Meanwhile, Goldie got what she deserved as she screamed in pain after her eyes were slashed off. While crying with crimson tears, she angrily demanded to know where that monster was. As she asked if there was anyone to help her, the girl quietly stood up and left. She cussed out in frustration and despair upon seeing that no one came to her rescue. Meanwhile, the system congratulated him for surviving and gave him a settlement. As he clicked on the panel, he said he never expected that he would actually survive, but then, the system warned him of a bug. The Frog Princess is furious due to the knight's death. Suddenly, a powerful energy was sensed and everyone was surprised. The whole place began shaking upon the entrance of an anomaly. Smokes bursted from the building and stretched towards Arya and Chris. From there emerged a level 13 Frog Princess, utterly enraged as it looked at them. The Frog Princess has become an enemy, and the mission objective to receive the princess's kiss was a failure. Meanwhile, Jin was wondering why the people from the association hadn't arrived yet. Ogi, the president of the Golden Consortium, stood as he waited for someone. There arrived a muscular man named Red, to which Ogi welcomed his entrance. The Frog Princess wasted no time and immediately attacked Chris and Arya. She continued chasing them around as the two evaded her. It stood up fuming mad, while Chris checked up on Arya who got injured. Brush panicked, saying they were doomed as they ran into a bug. He gritted his teeth, thinking if only he could use the Hellfire Embers. However, he can't feel mana from his hands anymore no matter how he tries. The looming Frog Princess looked down on them, while Chris anxiously looked up at the monster. Suddenly, a silhouette of a man streaked through and attacked the Frog Princess. His blows dealt solid hits on the monster as the smoke rose around. The Frog Princess couldn't endure such a powerful attack and fell to the ground. It was Red, gaining Chris's admiration as he displayed his pure brute strength. He then asked them if they were from the Golden Group, to which they said no. Then they saw Goldie's attendant, frantically running for them. Red then asked her if she was from the Golden Group, to which she reported that the young lady was over there injured. Arya then asked if they shouldn't clear the dungeon first before looking for her, to which he said it's not his mission. He then dashed away to search for Goldie, surprising the two of them. Even the Frog Princess was surprised by the attitude of the one who suddenly attacked her and left. It grew enraged, while Arya and Chris were looking at it. Pissed, the Frog Princess began chasing the three of them to vent out her anger. Meanwhile, Red finally arrived at the position of the young lady. He then introduced himself as the adventurer tasked to rescue her. But instead of gratitude, he only received scolding from her for taking too long. Meanwhile, the frog was seen still chasing the three of them. Then, Red suddenly landed in between them and surprised everyone. It then effortlessly kicked off the monster and sent it to the ground. He then commended the three of them for lasting this long despite being low-level adventurers, pissing them off. But to give them relief, he stood forward and asked the situation so he could deal with the monster. He faced it with the confidence of being able to eliminate such a level-exceeding bug. He began emanating powerful energy as he prepared himself for the fight. He fearlessly approached the Frog Princess to confront it. His single kick tore a crimson arc in the air as the Frog Princess chased him. He then turned around as the frog's head was overwhelmed by the force of his kick. Just like that, the Frog Princess is defeated. The portal unlocked the kingdom's defense mission, and it was a failure. He then turned to Chris and referred to him as the final bug, asking if he was the one who cleared the previous bug. He then said that a level 5 beginner who can do that much is different from the others, but he recalled that he had to fight desperately using the system's power to barely defeat the Frog Knight. Suddenly, Red asked what his profession is. He also wondered why his second stage insight skill can't see through his profession. Even Arya was wondering what his profession is and thinks that the mystery can now be solved. But Brush told him that he must never talk about it even if he beat him to death. Suddenly, Brush told him to run, to which he asked where. They then saw the exit portal opening right before them. They then rushed to the gate while planning to escape once outside. But before he could get out, Red stopped him. He then said that the industry-standard portal emergency protocol dictates that they must share loot for contributing to the fight. Arya had no problem with it and said she'll just ask his name once she gets out. Meanwhile, Red urged him to hurry as they will split the loot from the monster raid. Chris complied and approached, thinking that this large amount of loot could have been distributed evenly if not for a lot dying. But Red seemed to notice his hesitation and assured him it was alright to take the loot. He added that he will even grow past the level 10 threshold with these loots, to which Brush asked what is level 10 threshold. Chris explained that rank E dungeon is level 5 to 1, rank D is level 9 to 5, A and B follow the same pattern, except C is for level 10. It was also revealed that level C dungeons are notorious for frequent bugs, that's why adventurers rarely cross it. With this, Chris was convinced to share these loots so he can grow stronger. That's right, he clenched his fist, thinking there was no point in being indecisive. He has had enough with the feeling of powerlessness. But then, Red apologized while acknowledging his promising future. Brush couldn't shake the feeling that Red smells like death. He suddenly grabbed Chris's face, surprising the latter. He then squeezed it tightly, making his head explode. He let go of Chris's lifeless body to the ground, thinking it was such a pity to kill him. Arya and the two girls managed to get out of the portal with the help of Red. The association asked for a second, but the bodyguard stopped her because of Goldie's status. The green-haired girl was about to speak when Arya angrily stopped her. The latter was devastated when the association spotted her for assistance. She then wonders why Red and Chris haven't come out the portal yet. A report suddenly echoed, telling that the noble was rescued and Red was still inside. Jin sighed in relief, thinking that it was the end of the matter. With a hand on his chin, he thought that they managed to eliminate the number of waste adventurers. The nurse informed the doctor that the death of the corpses was dated back nearly a year. Jin thought of the investigation from the headquarters, thinking that he won't be in trouble because of Lucas. Meanwhile, inside the portal was Chris's body with its decapitated head. Red stared at the person in front of him with his hand raised. A system panel appeared in front of Brush, while Chris's corpse fell on the ground. It gave her a warning of mission failure, and the system will reset after the player's life subsides. At the demon world, a figure was confused while telling the other that they should keep Chris alive. The other figure told him to forget it since he always makes a commotion. Their chaotic discussions went on as they debated who will take the place of Chris's body for a moment. Suddenly, his lifeless body began crackling with bluish smoke. The entity possessed Chris's body, suddenly unleashing a power that surprised Red. He turned around in surprise, wondering why he can move even with his head severed. Chris's body began moving on its own, emanating powerful bluish energy. It further intensified the energy it released, enough to push back Red. With an overwhelming sense of pressure, the entity told Brush to bring Chris down to the underworld while he temporarily stopped his death. He even teased Brush for feeling sentimental over Chris. With this, Brush immediately complied and brought his soul back to the underworld. The bluish smoke began taking form on his head, surprising Red. In no time, the entity was able to regrow his head while looking at Red confidently. In the underworld, Chris' soul was temporarily sealed to prevent true death. Brush recalled how he usually showed repeated bursts of willpower at critical moments of life and death. Looking at him, she thought his contradictory behaviors didn't end there. He never showed any emotion over his friends' deaths, but was angry at those strangers. She further wondered which side is the true him. She gritted his teeth and realized that time is running out. She quickly casted a spell to keep his soul alive in a sense. Upon removing the seals, smoke began escaping from his eyes and mouth while he regained consciousness. He then asked where he was, to which Brush told him that something big happened. Chris knew that Red just came to kill him, saying he remembered what had happened. Looking at him, Brush was having the contradictory feeling again. After looking down earlier, he suddenly lightened up his mood. Chris further explained how Red was just a pawn who was ordered to eliminate him. He knew that the one behind this must have a reason to go through such lengths just to kill him. He then asked what he should do now and if he can still go back. But before he asked further, Brush urged him to attach his head first. She then told him that he bypassed the system the last time he died unexpectedly. But this time, he's supposed to be judged a failure by the system and die directly. However, someone is helping him delay the system time. It was the entity who possessed his body and is currently enjoying a battle with Red. Hearing about his situation, Chris asks Brush what he needs to do for the second trial. Suddenly, countless mission panels appeared as she revealed that he must complete it all. The panels displayed countless exercises for his daily routine that will strengthen his body. Looking at it, Chris figured out that these are various methods for dealing with different enemies. Brush then smiled as she said that she will now introduce his new coach. Chris asked if his new coach was some ghost from the underworld, but as the air shifted, he couldn't help but remark that the scene felt familiar. Chains began rattling as his new coaches began entering the place. Now, standing before him was a pair of towering gates from the underworld. A hand stuck out of the gate as it opened. He was then surprised while Brush asked if he remembers them. These guys turned out to be his old acquaintances. Their eyes glowed with sharp and cutting energy as they stared forward. Chris' new coach was none other than the Black and White Impermanence.